Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm so thrilled to be here with you. I'm Zoe Coven, leading our customer experience innovation at Zendesk.
And I'm Kate Cohane, and I lead our global customer advocacy organization.
And we're here to talk to you today about driving business transformation. We expect that many of you might be thinking about this right now, and this is something that Kate and we've just been going through this for the last more than a year, and we've learned a lot throughout that process. So we're excited to talk to you today about what those learnings are.
That's right. So let's talk a little bit about what we mean by business transformation. And this is a fundamental shift in how your company conducts business. It'll impact the people, the process, and the technology. And it really is a critical component to drive sustained growth for your organization. What are a few examples of business transformation that you might know about? Well, Netflix is one that comes to mind. They made the pivot from mail-in DVDs to streaming, obviously very well documented, a massive transformation. And then you think about the other guy, their competitor, that failed to make that transition and ultimately paid the price. So some relevant examples for our audience today are perhaps you're thinking of overhauling your customer experience. And what does that mean? Maybe you want to move away from the unauthenticated channels like talk, like chat, and over to something more asynchronous and personalized like messaging. You also might be thinking about your digital experience and how you can improve the self-service experience through automation, through bots, to really make sure your customers are able to self-serve. And if you're anything like us, you decided to do it all.
That's right.
So now that you guys are hearing that this is a very tall order, you might feel like, I can't do this. But I'm going to challenge you all to think the risk of not innovating is actually far worse than if you start on your journey, a la that competitor of Netflix. So let's talk about, is now the right time? And it is often challenging to determine when you want to start something like this. But it's key to start your transformation when there is no friction in the business, when you're actually still driving a positive customer experience. Perhaps what's happened is you've stagnated. You haven't brought in any new technology. You're starting to see some of your competitors do things that are more innovative than you. Well, good news, you've heard all about all the great stuff that Zendesk is rolling out, but now is the time to do it. Do not wait until you are in crisis, a la this poor sheep on our screen today. Once you are in crisis, you don't have the ability to think about scale, time frame, and you certainly aren't going to be able to resource. So I'm here to tell you the time is now.
So let's jump in. We have 3 things that we want to talk to you about today. The first is about your strategic context, and this is what's happening with your business, with the market that's setting the stage for what you're trying to do. The second is around organizing your team. Organizing your team can be the make or break of this actually working out really well, and we know that it's probably big and cross-functional, so it's going to require a different kind of setup than you might have in the past. And the final thing we want to talk to you about is momentum. Seems so simple, but is so powerful. How do you actually create momentum and then keep it throughout this entire process? So jumping into strategic context, there are 2 key things we want to talk to you about. The first is around setting a vision, and the vision is going to be what allows everybody to dream with you and to imagine a different reality. And the second is going to be about setting goals that actually help you measure whether you're getting there. So Kate, talk us through a little bit about what makes a really good vision and what's going to make really good goals for people.
Well, no better example than the one we used when we started on our journey. So we at Zendesk want to be the blueprint for a great customer experience. And more specifically, we want to have a world-class support operation. We want to drive a best-in-class implementation of our own tools, all the bells and whistles that Zendesk has to offer. And last but not least, we want to be a CX thought partner. And that's partnering with customers like you on CX methodologies. And ultimately, and maybe most importantly, we want to give advocacy that well-deserved seat at the table. And in addition to having a very clear vision statement that everyone rallies behind, it's important to have goals, and that's going to harden what you're trying to do with this initiative. And again, goals are going to help you when trade-off decisions come down the line to make sure that you're still doing what you set out to do. One thing I said to Zoe when we started this journey is we really are the defenders of the customer experience. And if you lose sight of that as you go through the journey, it's going to make it a lot harder to stay true to your vision statement. So let's talk about goals. We recommend that you have a maximum of 3 to 5 goals, or else you're likely biting off more than you can chew. And again, these are already some pretty big transformations you're trying to drive. So let's keep it simple when possible. Goals must be measurable, and it's especially important if you're doing something completely new. If you don't have a baseline for your goals, which actually we didn't in our transformation, it's okay. Still set them, and then as you start to launch and as you start to roll out more things, you'll be able to validate those goals and set those baselines along the way.
So let's transition and talk about organizing the team. And as we mentioned at the beginning, this can really be make or break. So we have here our absolutely wonderful CEO, Mikkel. And if you're anything like myself or Kate, he might be writing to you on a daily basis.
I think it was hourly at the end of it all.
Maybe hourly, saying, how's it going? Are we on track? Are things going according to plan? And jokes aside, that might sound a little bit overwhelming, but that level of sponsorship is going to be absolutely essential for the type of change that you're hoping to drive. So we encourage you, lean into it, find the people who are going to be the megaphone for what you're trying to do, and have them help you get there. Jumping into the brass tacks a little bit about how we actually organize the team. So the first is we strongly recommend that you organize a steering committee. This might be leaders cross-functional across your company who are going to help you with resourcing this, setting your milestones, and making sure that this is actually going forward. There are 4 key roles that we had that we thought were absolutely essential in driving this forward. And these are the folks who are part of your day-to-day. The first is your program management lead. And this person is setting your timelines, your milestones. They're making sure that the program is actually on track. From there, you have your business lead. Your business lead is creating the service design. So we talked about that vision, right? That blue sky. They're the ones who are saying, what's the customer experience that we want to create here? They're working hand in hand with the solution architect. And the solution architect is the person who's saying, all right, I love your blue sky vision. How are we actually going to make that a reality with the tooling and technologies available today? And then the last one is your technical delivery lead, and they are the one who is driving the team and actually running the day-to-day execution.
And wouldn't you say each of these areas, it's not a quick handoff from one to the next. It's really a collaboration at all times where service design, solution, and our implementation teams are all working very closely together to deliver on the vision.
Absolutely. And that is essential to making sure that this comes together in a cohesive way. And I think that brings up kind of the last big point, which is that while everyone is working together, it still is really important to have work streams that are defining your individual bodies of work that have their own milestones. Because what we found is if it was just all one big project together, it was really hard to actually set things that we were going to be delivering incrementally. And so breaking that down into work streams was critical. Some of you might be looking at this and think that it's too overwhelming, and some of you might think that this is too small for what you're thinking about. That is totally okay. There are businesses of all sizes who are going through different kinds of transformations, but just use this as a guideline for how to think through structuring your team. Alrighty, so let's talk about our final piece here, which is momentum. What we want to share about momentum is that you might be sitting here today, and we've talked about whether you're ready, you're already in your transformation, or you're thinking about it, and you have that blue sky vision, and everyone is excited about that. And then you have this future state, right? You have this wow that you're thinking about. And you have a gap to bridge between the two, and you need to figure out how are you actually going to begin to tackle that. And so you begin, and everyone's excited, and this is where you're leaning into setting that vision to create that excitement, right? And from there, you're starting the program, and as you're in it, you might find yourself looking around and saying, this is a mess.
Yep. I think Mikkel gave us a great analogy as we started our journey where it's almost like you're looking in your garage and you're uncovering all these things you've had for a million years and you don't know what to do with it. So it was messy to start.
Exactly. And so you're looking around, and by the way, and if you're sitting at home and you're thinking, wow, things are a mess for me, that's okay.
Yep.
We understand. And you have this future, you have this wow moment that you're trying to get to, and you're trying to figure out where to go from there. What we encourage you to do is don't shoot for the moon. Do not try to wait for you to get to that wow moment. You're going to be waiting too long. We think you're focused on the this is good, right? And your this is good is where it's working. You're nailing some of those key goals that you set out to do from the very beginning. And what we think is most important is that once you get it out there, you're going to be getting feedback from your customers and from your employees that's going to help you to actually improve.
To Zoe's point, it's super important that you continue to ship incrementally, and not just ship incrementally, but celebrate the mini milestones. So as you start to progress in your journey, make sure you're celebrating those wins with your team so that they stay excited and they stay motivated to go on that journey with you. So many of you customers are probably already on your transformation journey or after this presentation about to start, and we want you to know that we're in that boat with you. So to recap what we want you to take away from the presentation today, it's critically important to have a service design with a vision statement and measurable goals. We also think it's important that you have sponsorship, and ideally that comes from the very top with your CEO. In fact, if you'd like to borrow our CEO, I'm sure he'd be more than willing to join all of you on your journeys. Second, and also most importantly, this is a cross-functional effort, so there needs to be clear accountability in your program framework. Zoe mentioned that you need to have that framework, that steering committee, and those key technical, business, and solution leads. This will also help ensure that you have minimal conflict as you progress through your journey. And last but not least, it is important to ship incrementally. Don't wait for that whole thing to be perfect, or else you will be waiting forever. And it is very important to keep the momentum and the excitement and the celebration as you move through your own transformations. So thank you again for joining us today. We really enjoyed talking to you, and we look forward to partnering with you on your transformational journeys.
Hi, I'm Adrian McDermott, the CTO of Zendesk. I'm super excited to talk to you today about our 5 big bets for the future of CX, or customer experience. Now, we tend to overestimate the effect of technology in the short run and underestimate the effect in the long run. I love this quote, it's so true. And we've thought about those effects and those timelines for conversational CRM, AI, customer journeys, customer intelligence, and platform, and how that's going to affect the customer experience landscape. We've thought about it across 2 time horizons, short-term, 2025, and long-term, 2030. How are these things going to change? So, big bet number 1, by 2025, conversational CRM will be dominant and proactive. And by 2030, we think that every business will live and provide conversational CRM wherever you are. They'll come and meet you. So messaging, I think, has changed the way we communicate with each other. Really, who leaves voicemails anymore? Almost nobody. If you're thinking about calling room service at a Four Seasons, I mean, it's so much nicer to order that cocktail from WhatsApp than it is picking up the phone and having a conversation. We just use messaging everywhere. And messaging has changed the way we communicate, not just with each other, but with businesses, the way businesses communicate with businesses, and the way businesses communicate with employees. So what's really interesting about messaging as a platform, we think, is that it's so rich. You can browse, you can shop, you can get a delivery, you can do so many things. You can survey, you can share your location, right? The messaging window has become the web for those conversations. It's powerful, and the companies can express themselves in that window and build great experiences. Let's fast forward to 2030. What happens? What are the extensions of this as it keeps rolling? Well, everywhere that you go, whether you're a service technician on the runway servicing an aircraft, whether you're just at home on your couch ordering pizza, everywhere you go, messaging will be there, service will be there. On the runway, you can see a manual, you can ask a question of an expert on the manual, you can get pointers, you can see diagrams. It's all there, it's all immersive, it's all ready for you, it's all in the moment. Let's move on to big bet number 2. Big bet number 2, by 2025, all service will be AI first. And by 2030, controversially, AI will replace the majority of frontline customer interactions. Now, AI is still clearly not perfect, but we've seen tremendous progress. AI is already outpacing doctors in detecting fractures. We could drive self-driving cars. We can drive around in them. That's like magical. I didn't imagine that that would be a thing in my lifetime, and yet it is, even if they occasionally leap a river. And in CX land, I think we've gotten used to the way AI can help us react to customer conversations. If you think about the whole customer journey, right, we can automate, recommendations and prediction and responses for our users. I think by 2025, we'll see more preventative anticipation and proactive engagement with users, enriching the whole cycle not just the part at which they ask you a question. Super powerful, excited for that future. And then as we move into 2030, I think what's going to be interesting, accelerated by the Great Resignation, is that eventually AI will be able to automate almost 75% of frontline customer interaction tasks. That doesn't mean, I think, that those jobs are going to be replaced. It just means that you'll be able to deploy people to richer, more personal, more interactive activities in any job site, in any customer service interaction, in any sales interaction, and spend less time up front on the difficult pieces of collecting information and gathering intent. And I think that is a trend that will continue. So, big bet number 3. Customers will drive all service by 2025, and by 2030, hyper-specialized support will be available for everything, for a price. Let's go back in history to the classic phone contact center and service. Service in the past used to mean the business being in control. They had a script, they followed the script, there was standard operating procedure. Hi, I'm Adrian, how can I help you today? Please enter your account number, yada, yada, yada. But now the power dynamic has shifted. Companies that use new CX techniques, they're getting beyond the phone tree where you had to go through every branch to get to the leaf, to smart systems that say, well, what is the intent? What is Adrian's intent? What is he trying to do? And what is the action that I'm going to apply to Adrian's intent? And I think those kind of bots, that kind of AI, they are allowing the power dynamic to shift so the user can feel very in control. We know from our own CX Trends survey that 61% of people leave a company or find an alternative after a bad experience. 2 bad experiences, that number goes up. Now, in the future, by 2030, we think highly specialized support will be available for everything. We already see notions of this now. I think about being able to outsource to the community, finding bugs in your system or security issues, being able to outsource things to Fiverr and these other services that provide users, even breaking up with your girlfriend. I think the idea of concierge level support for any experience is super powerful. And why not? Why not in the future could we not be able to pay for any kind of support or experience, no matter what the product, not necessarily from the vendor providing that product or service. Big bet number 4. It's not about having all the data. It's about doing the right things with the right data by 2025. And by 2030, the notion of a system of record will change entirely. I'll explain what that means. Businesses used to struggle initially with having all the data. There were so many data integration projects. It was about moving data from point A to point B, from database A to database B. And then we had all the data, and suddenly we were trying to report on it. We had data lakes and data lake houses. We were data rich and information poor. We knew all of these things about our customers, but we didn't have insights. We didn't understand what they wanted or what their intent was. And I think getting the right insights from the right data at the right time to give each customer a personalized experience, a personalized journey is incredibly important. Companies that excel at personalization, they generate 40% more revenue than average players in this area. Now, that personalization used to be driven more by demographics. Male, born, in 1948, lives in a castle in the UK, et cetera, et cetera. But Prince Charles and Ozzy Osbourne are looking for very different outcomes. They have very different intents. They have different histories. And we have to think about what brought them to this point as we personalize for them. Because what we're trying to do is not build a segment based on demographics. We're trying to build a segment of customers of one person. Each experience can be fully individualized to that individual. Now, eventually, we're going to be constrained there. We talked about having all the right data at the right time, and time is going to be important because I think users by 2030 are really going to want to control how long you have access to their data. That data is going to be ephemeral, right? It's going to be temporary. You're going to have temporary access. I, as a user, want to control what you know about me and when you know it, not just what. And so I might let you know where I live to return, so I can get a new shirt shipped to me. I might then not want you to know that. I might not want you to know my name after that transaction is over until I interact with you again, and then I'll give you a view into it. When we have ephemeral or temporary data access that users control, what's a system of record? I think it becomes a challenge for CX providers and for companies that provide CX. Bet number 5. Composability in low code will make it easier and faster than ever to build a dream customer journey. And by 2030, any development work you need, you'll just be able to do it yourself. Developers are in short supply, but the low code revolution, it's making it easier and faster to develop than ever before. If we're going to have a shortfall of 1.2 million developers in the US by 2026, obviously solutions are being found, right? And one of the ways is by developing low-code or no-code solutions where you can configure rather than code, you can control. I think Zendesk has many great examples of low-code technology. If you think about the way you can configure workflow using triggers, the way that you can build views to do things. And code is dependent upon reuse, by the way. So composability is the compound interest of software. Highfalutin, great talk, but really what that's about is the pieces that we use, the chunks of things, the functionality, the pieces of data, we should be able to put them together and recombine them in ways that are interesting and useful for us, not just interesting and useful to the way that the people who designed the software thought was good. So citizen developers will unlock monster software development growth and develop anything that they need themselves. Developers will also become much more productive, but in the future, we're really going to see an explosion here. So those are our 5 big bets for the future of customer experience. We talked about conversational CRM, AI, customer journeys, customer intelligence, and platform, and the impact they're going to have on the journeys and experiences that you design for your customers in the future. We're very confident that at least 50% of these are true. We're excited to find out which 50% that is. Thank you so much.
Winning brands understand the importance of building an emotional connection with their customers. Have you ever interacted with BarkBox or Chewy? They strive to know your pet, not only their names, but their birthdays, their favorite toys, and be a small and memorable part of your relationship with your pets. Have you ever interacted with DraftKings? They'll not only know your favorite sport teams, but they'll tell them why they suck and tell you why their sport teams are better. And they love to be part of that adrenaline of watching a game, regardless if your team wins or loses, rain or shine. Have you ever interacted with Stitch Fix? They offer a service that's so personal to people, where they know your body type intimately, your style preferences intimately, and take the onus upon them to make sure you look awesome and feel awesome when you go out into a social setting or experience. And they aim to bring that human, personalized conversation experience to every interaction you have with that brand. Winning brands, which all 3 of these are, invest in the emotional experience. My name is Vasu Pratapati. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Maestro QA. We work with hundreds of customer service teams, of which many use Zendesk. And we focus on helping each and every one of them build emotional connections with their customers. And we help them do it in 3 ways. First, we help them listen to their customers and get a pulse on the areas of friction and the sources of frustration in the customer experience better. 2, we help them understand the root cause of that friction, the why behind that friction. We help them understand, is it an agent experience issue, a product experience issue, a process experience issue that's causing that frustration? And then lastly, we help them close the loop by taking those insights and turning into action, very often through coaching or training. A simple analogy to think of what we do, you can think about it as going to the doctor. What's the first thing the doctor does? They get a sense of your vitals, which are your health indicators as to what's going on. And then after they look at your vitals, they do a deeper dive diagnosis where they ask a series of questions to get a real sense of what might be bothering you. And then lastly, when you leave the doctor's office, you have a set of prescriptive actions and next steps. If you're one of the select few that go to the doctor very proactively and get proactive health checks, God bless you. That's not me, but there are also brands that are like that. These are the brands that just intrinsically know in their DNA the importance of the human connection, the importance of building these relationships with their customers. And they seek out every single way to find a competitive advantage when it comes to building that human connection. Now, if you're more like me and you go to the doctor when something's a little bit more awry, you're like most brands. And that is often a trigger of negative customer complaints on the Better Business Bureau or online. Or you see some negative comments in your NPS score. or on your CSAT comments. Or potentially the worst case situation, you see these complaints surfacing to the CEO who then forwards you that email asking what's going on. And all of a sudden when this happens, boom, there's a spotlight on customer service. And from my experience, from when I talk to customer service leaders, they're thirsty for a better ability to understand the why behind this friction. They're also thirsty for a better ability to take these insights and turn it into action. They don't just want pretty dashboards anymore. I'm so excited for you to get to see how you can actually put this into action and dig into the magic.
As a company, you are managing thousands and sometimes millions of conversations with customers. In this vast sea of conversations, it's really difficult to cut through the noise and really listen to the most critical and relevant conversations that actually reveal opportunities for improvement. Where are the instances that a customer was upset? Was it due to agent error? Or is there a process improvement insight in that conversation? Or was that due to a product gap that we need to take to our product team? Imagine if there was a technology that could help you find the needle in the haystack, that could surface those critical conversations and allow you to deep dive into the root cause of why customers were dissatisfied, and then allow you to take the necessary steps to resolve the issue and prevent it from happening in the future. Let's take a look at that technology now and run through an example of how this might be possible. We are looking at a DSAT analysis dashboard showing data on how often and why customers left a poor satisfaction rating after their conversation with support. In this table here, we can see examples of tickets with a poor satisfaction rating and see the comment that the customer left explaining their rating. This is powerful because it lets you actually listen to your customer and hear directly from them on why they're disappointed. But naturally, when you have a lot of conversations on a lot of topics, you can't flip through every single comment in this list. So you might wonder, where is my dissatisfaction concentrated? Where do I need to focus? Well, one place we could start looking is by looking at DSAT breakdown by channel. To dig into those conversations, we can see that DSAT is heavily concentrated in this email channel. In this case, we can filter this dashboard for the email channel and then see all the conversations and all the information relevant to that channel. From there, we might wonder, well, based on the email channel, we have a lot of topics that come in for that channel. Which one is the one that I really need to dive deep into? For that, we can look at this DSAT by tag breakdown. And from here, we can see that DSAT on subscription issues is abnormally high. And so we can do the same thing again, and we can filter by the subscription issue tag. Let's go ahead and apply those filters to our dashboard. As you can see, we are diving deeper and deeper and going to the root cause of that dissatisfaction to identify those areas of improvement. Now that we've narrowed down our search, let's look at some of those interactions and see what people have to say. We can actually see a comment here where the customer called out the agent and said that agent was not helpful and they were insensitive. And so that indicates a conversation that we might find value out of and be able to find some coaching opportunities out of. So let's go ahead and open up that conversation. Now that we've opened up this conversation, we can go ahead and review it and even grade it by clicking this Add Scores. We can grade this ticket on a DSAT specific rubric and help clarify if this issue was due to an agent error or a product error. And once we get to the root cause of why that interaction was not favorable by the customer, we can even add that as a coaching opportunity right here. And that's it. Just like that, you've leveraged this reporting technology to listen to your customers, get to the root cause of why that happened and pinpoint an opportunity to improve, and then went on to action on that opportunity and improve your customer experience in a meaningful way.
Thank you so much for the time today. As we wrap up this session, I'd love for us to have 2 takeaways. 1, the importance of building emotional connections with your customers and how that can be a differentiator. 2, how do I enable this? How can I listen better? How can I understand better? And how can I act better? Thank you so much for the time.
Hello, I'm Michael Sidicassi, VP of Partnerships at Ada, and we are absolutely thrilled to be Platinum sponsor at this year's Zendesk Relate. Today, I'm going to be talking about 3 big ideas for an automation-first world. Here at Ada, we call it the brand interaction gap. So, what is the brand interaction gap? There's a growing gap between what brands promise and how they actually interact. Every time someone interacts with your brand, it's an opportunity to build trust, deliver value, and ultimately drive growth. We all know when you do a great job, you never hear about it on Twitter, but just one bad experience can sink that relationship for life. In a digital world where more than 100 billion messages flow through WhatsApp alone every day, people expect their needs to be met with the click of a button. Providing valuable interactions at scale has only become more expensive and complex, and this is how the gap starts to form. The thing is, not many brands differentiate on product, pricing, or even customer experience anymore. For the modern enterprise, delivering more valuable brand interactions can be a lifeboat. This is what we focus on at Ada, creating a brand interaction platform that bridges the divide between you and the people who are trying to talk to you every moment, everywhere. We want to make it possible for you to automate conversations with each customer and employee, have savings costs, growing revenue without betraying the brand that you promise to be. Before we dive in, I wanted to give you a quick overview on Ada. Innovative brands around the world are using Ada's platform to automate billions of interactions with their customers across all their digital properties. I'm proud to say we are one of the fastest growing companies in North America. Ada serves as a brand interaction layer between you and your customers. Non-technical members of your team can create automated brand interactions using our builder interface and advanced natural language understanding, then deploy Ada as the first point of contact across the channels where your customers are trying to talk to you. Ada integrates with the most common business systems so that you can personalize, analyze, and optimize your every customer interaction. For the next 10 minutes, I'll be talking about what this looks like in today's world. I'll cover 3 big ideas in the tech space. Some of them may already be on your mind. We'll drill into how each of these affects or changes the relationship between the brand and the stakeholder, and how that in turn affects brand interaction. And then to tie it all together, we'll be highlighting how Tile, a joint Zendesk and Ada customer, is excelling in all 3 trends. I'm excited. Let's dive in. So, big idea number 1, embrace your digital experience as your default brand experience. Here's a hot take. We're well past the age of digital transformation. The world has already digitally transformed, and customers have adjusted. Now it's time for brands to catch up. We see it in the data around Black Friday and Cyber Monday. These used to be weekend-long, retail-specific events. Now pretty much every brand needs a Black Friday or Cyber Monday campaign, and they can last for weeks and sometimes even months. For the first time ever, Black Friday and Cyber Monday sales actually declined in 2021. Maybe it's just a slump, but we think it means that consumers are spreading out their online spending throughout the year, and that having a dedicated day for online shopping is becoming about as redundant as the term e-commerce itself. Now, imagine a shopping experience that starts online in an augmented reality dressing room, progresses to an in-store fitting, and then ends with a purchase within the same Facebook Messenger conversation the customer initially reached out on after clicking on an Instagram ad. Awesome. It's time for brands to think and operate across functions and beyond touch points. Because in a digitally transformed world, every day is Cyber Monday. Before Ada, Tile was a brand that really prided itself on their human-first approach to customer experience. However, during the holiday season, they struggled to maintain their exceptional customer experience. To keep up with the increased demands, they hired temporary headcount, which proved to be expensive and inefficient. With the Zendesk Ada integration, Tile was not only able to save costs on seasonal headcount, but they were also able to see revenue growth from customers who are being served at faster rates. Since their implementation, I'm happy to say that Ada has helped engage with almost 50,000 support inquiries, and over 50% of those inquiries are being answered by the Ada platform. This is a great example of why digital first is best for your brand. All right, big idea number 2. Decisions rooted in real conversational data are your path to success. Modern brands have become good at collecting data, but for most, that's where they stop. Not only does it stand in the way of growth, but collecting all that data costs money. And the reasons brands typically sit on this gold mine of value is they don't know how to use it wisely, and they don't have systems in place that make the data easy to read or act on. So here's another hot take. People know that you're collecting their data. They expect it, and they are content to provide it as long as there's something in it for them. Let me ask you a question. How many of you have smart devices at home? I have a Google Home, a Nest doorbells, cameras, a thermostat, even my coffee machine is connected. In my world, with a partner, 2 kids, and a dog, often Google is the only one who listens to me. All I have to do is say, "Good morning," and it sets a whole series of actions in motion. I know that these devices are collecting my data, and they feed it across the smart ecosystem. So, why do I keep adding devices? Why do any of us? The answer is, the experience is really cool, right? I doubt any of us have a person who comes in the morning, adjusts the temperature, opens your blinds, prepares your coffee, puts on your favorite music. I mean, if you do, please send me their number. Automation has made the VIP experience available and accessible at scale. We're all happy to give our data as long as we get that in return. So where am I going with this? Chances are the customer data is already being used by your marketing department. But what about your other teams? How many of your brand's collective decisions are backed by real data from customers, prospects, employees, and even candidates? When people tell you what they want, who's listening? The goal of collecting data should be to learn more about the people interacting with your brand so you can automate more valuable experiences down the road. So you can create that magical VIP experience that keeps them coming back for more. This is not possible without AI and integrations. In this same way that smart devices connect with one another to make this happen, your tech stack should be integrated in a central brand interaction platform, just like Zendesk and Ada is. Tile already had anonymized and aggregated data from Zendesk Insights on their frequent inquiries, as well as their most common customer use cases. This data on the customer experience helped the Ada team rapidly create the most valuable answer flows for Tile's customers. All right, big idea number 3. Think global, act local. I love traveling. I love the sights, the shopping. I love sampling the local cuisine. But you know what it's like. Sometimes with kids, or if you've been in the same place for a while, you just want old reliable. And you love seeing those familiar big golden arches in the distance. In an unpredictable world, a Big Mac tastes the same everywhere. The world's most beloved brands are reliable. They offer customers a sense of something familiar, a safety net that you can fall back on when all else fails. At the same time, not all McDonald's menus are created equal. When I was traveling in India, for instance, I would be able to indulge in a spicy paneer wrap. It's a vegetarian treat catered to local tastes and customs. A digital world is global by definition. There's only one internet, and you need to assume your brand will transcend borders. To strike the delicate balance between universal brand values and the behaviors and interactions that back them up, brands need to be accountable to cultural differences in diverse markets. With language agnostic NLU, brands can respect regional differences without having to build unique solutions for every market. Because the way you interact with a customer or an employee in the US or the UK wouldn't and shouldn't be the same way you interact with one from Egypt or Israel. The balance is figuring out what are your universal brand values and brand promises that transcend language and culture, your Big Mac, and what the local interaction nuances are, the spicy paneer wrap. Ada's translation capabilities meant the Tile team was able to save hours of time and unlock growth opportunities across the globe. The support team wrote, built, and managed answers in English. Meanwhile, Ada automatically translated and enabled interactions in not only English, but also French, German, and Spanish. With Ada's automatic translation of Tile's Live's chat content, the Tile team was able to better serve their global customers and see an increase in revenue from their global audience. As I mentioned at the very top, at Ada, we close the gap with automated brand interaction. This topic is our bread and butter, and I'd love to talk more about it with you. I hope you found these 3 big ideas valuable and were able to see how conversational AI and automation-first approach to customer experience has transformed Tile into a leader in the customer experience space. By embracing their digital experience, relying on their data, and being able to serve customers in multiple languages, Tile has turned their reactive customer experience model into a proactive, revenue-generating model. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. If you haven't already, be sure to check out our digital booth to talk to a member of our team or scan the QR code on the screen to get to the full Zendesk, Ada, and Tile case study. Thank you.